Welcome, welcome, welcome. Well, folks, this is actually a really big, tough day for me specifically, for you as a Mets fan. New York Mets today, after losing Edwin Diaz yesterday. Yesterday I was, literally didn't understand that move for the life of me. You lose the best closer in Mets history, right? You lose the best closer in Mets history. How do you follow that up a day later? How can you top that? Losing the best closer in Mets history. Well, a day later, we get news that Pete Alonso signed a 5-year, $155 million contract with the Baltimore Orioles. The Baltimore Orioles. Thus, we just lost our best slugger in Mets history. So, in a very short time, the Mets lost Brandon Nimmo. You lost Edwin Diaz. Now you lose Pete Alonso. And honestly, as this offseason goes along, this team is getting worse and worse and worse. And at the helm, you have the genius, the so-called genius, David Stearns. And honestly, right now, if you're confident in David Stearns, I give you all the credit in the world because my confidence level in this man is beyond abysmal. I have no confidence in this man right now. Again, we lost the best closer in Mets history, the best slugger in Mets history, one of the best, most likable players in Mets history, Brandon Nimmo. We acquired Frankie Montas, one of the worst contracts in Mets history. Sean Manaea, who has elbow issues galore. That's going to go down as an all-time abysmal contract. Right now, our payroll is $300 million, and we have a ton of holes on this team. We have a ton of holes, and last year we won 83 games. So you know what you do? You take away two of the most competent players on the team. You take away one of the only reasons why you won 83 games. Juan Soto's protection. Juan Soto had a great year. Oh, you take away his protection. You take away Pete Alonso. And I know we had defensive liabilities. But again, what is the backup alternative? At the end of the day, we have more and more things to replace. And this is not getting better, folks. This is getting worse. And again, I know there's people putting a positive spin on this. But at the end of the day, there can only be one World Series champion. And you have to be aggressive. You have to be creative. You have to be better at maneuvering than the other franchises. Right now, as we speak, as the Mets continue to lose talent, the Dodgers are getting better. They are capitalizing on the Mets' idiotic moves. The Mets didn't communicate with Edwin Diaz, thus opened the door for him to go across country and take advantage of that opportunity in LA. Okay. Again, you learn from mistakes. And I said, I was up till 3 o'clock in the morning live streaming saying, all right, you know what? At the very least, we lost Diaz. But if the New York Mets can learn from past mistakes and move forward, and when I say learn from past mistakes, apparently David Stearns chose not to communicate with Pete Alonso. So at the end of the day, we all know David Stearns didn't value Pete Alonso, did not value him because you don't ignore somebody you value. You don't ignore somebody you value. Thus, apparently from reports, we didn't even get a chance to make a final offer. We didn't. I think our last offer was somewhere in the 3-year range. Pete Alonso was getting offers in the 4 or 5 year range. And that was well past the point of where David Stearns wanted to go. So, I mean, right now, things can change. We can get Kyle Tucker. We can get Cody Bellinger. And the thing is, right now, you got to be on the phone right now. By the end of this day, honestly, I want Bellinger signed. If you're going to tell me we're going to get Pete Alonso and we're going to replace him with a Bellinger, we're going to get a Tucker for the outfield, okay, I'll see some path of redemption. But right now, I don't have confidence in the architect. I certainly don't. I certainly don't. And honestly, the funny thing is, I just put this picture up yesterday. I literally put this picture up yesterday, because I came to the realization that We need Pete. We need Pete. He gives us the best stability in the lineup. It wasn't Pete's problem last year that the pitchers couldn't pitch. It's certainly the last 4 months when we didn't have a viable starting rotation. Pete Alonso was clutch. He was productive in New York, and one of our, best runs in the last 2 decades happened in 2024 because of Pete Alonso. And again, I guess, that wasn't good enough. Last year, we tried to, embarrass Pete. We tried to get him for pennies on a dollar, and Alonso was bitter. Alonso was upset. Alonso literally used that fire to propel him to having a really good season. But Steve Cohen did say, hey, Pete, you go out there, you see what your market is, you see what your value is, and we will respond in kind. So you know what Pete Alonso did? He had a great year. He proved himself. He proved what his market value was this year. And you know what the Mets did? They ignored him. They didn't value him at all. So in my opinion, that was a very dishonest way to do business, right? So if you are looking for players to come to the New York Mets and you are treating your homegrown players with such utter disrespect, how does that look and appeal to other prospective players? The only reason why we have Juan Soto on this team is because of Steve Cohen, not because of David Stearns. So, again, this is another dark day in Mets history. After saying that 24 hours ago, just 24 hours later, another dark day in Mets history. And this is coming a little over a year after the Mets signing Juan Soto. We should be building the team step by step in a better direction. But again, it really seems right now we are dismantling the New York Mets. It almost feels like we are in a rebuilding mode. Like Stearns, while pretending to say we're all in and pretending to feel like we are going for it, he's basically dismantling the team and rebuilding right from out underneath our noses. So, can things happen? Yes, but Stearns would have to thread the needle. I don't have confidence that he has the ability to do it. Very underwhelming thus far. And it really is it tells a big tale how homegrown players right now are responding to the leadership of David Stearns, and they are running away. They are going to different ends of the country. I mean, this is really not good, folks. This is really not good. And if you really analyze the job David Stearns is doing on this big league team, I know the minor leagues are looking better. All right, the guy's a good scout. The guy could be a good chief scout. He's doing great in the minor leagues. He's building up the minor leagues. But as far as running this organization, again, not very impressive, and losing your all-time home run leader, your all-time slugger, a guy who has brought stability to this franchise for the last 6-7 years, a guy who you promised last year, go out there, produce, and, we will reward you for that production. Didn't do it. So, I'm going to do this change right now. I don't even want to do this change, but, I put this picture up yesterday of Pete Alonso. Unfortunately, I got to take it down. And now I got to redecorate because of David Stearns. So he screwed me in that way as well. But, it is what it is. It is what it is. Not very good. Not very good. But let me say hello to you. William, you've been here for a very long time. I know you're disappointed with David Stearns. I know right now, along with the rest of the fan base, and this is ultra frustrating too, because last year, Steve Cohen literally spoke to the fan base. He literally said, come out to the ballpark. Come out to the ballpark, support the team. And this year, the New York Mets fans did respond like no other fan base. Like no other fan base. We all came out to the ballpark. We all supported this team, and the team literally went like this. And down. And that's how they rewarded us. And this offseason, We see right now, currently, we are dismantling this team. And this is all intentional. All intentional. You don't treat Edwin Diaz the way you treated him if you value him. Edwin Diaz was never, they didn't communicate with him after Devin Williams was signed. You would think if you want to really sign Edwin Diaz and you want him to be your elite closer, you would think after getting another established closer that you would tell him what his role is and you would tell him that he is still priority numero uno. But no. The Mets decided not to do that. They made that 3-year, $66 million kind of BS offer. They knew that Edwin Diaz was disrespected. And then people are kind of like speculating. Did the Mets know that the Dodgers offered that 3-year, $69 million offer? Yes, the Mets had knowledge of the offer. They lowballed Edwin Diaz, and then they said, hey, come back in a little bit. We still have more money on the table. You know what, folks? Not everybody wants to play games. David Stearns, that's his thing. He wants to get everybody for pennies on the dollar. Not going to happen. Again, you look across the country and you see LA, and they are not giving pennies on the dollar to players that they value. They see a commodity and they attack the commodity and move heaven and earth so that they make their team better and more of a viable World Series contender and ultimate a champion. So again, right now, how far are we from a World Series champion? How far are we? Because again, even from the beginning of this offseason where we were about the middle of the pack, we were about a 500 team, we're right now less than an 80-win team. We have no starting rotation. We have literally, 6 holes in our lineup, 7 holes in the lineup besides Soto and Lindor. The whole lineup has holes in them. The bullpen, we have one man, Devin Williams, Brooks Raley, AJ Minter. I got to see how he is. But we have holes galore on this team. And already half of the offseason, December 10th, it's over. It's over. So again, we need to see immediate aggression. I want to see how David Stearns responds to this incompetence. Are we going to get Bellinger? Are we going to move heaven and earth to acquire a talented player that will affect the New York Mets in a positive way and get us to obviously a higher win total? I want to see that ASAP because right now I have no confidence in this decision-making man. I don't. I really don't right now. So if anybody right now has any positivity, please let me know. I see, Richard, you wrote early, finally it's over. I mean, in one respect, it's been kind of ridiculous, the drama that's been dragged on almost the last 3 years with Pete Alonso. Are we going to sign him? Are we not going to sign him? Let's try to get him for pennies on the dollar. I mean, honestly, I'm not mad at Pete. I'm really not, because Pete wanted to be a Met. The Mets just weren't paying him market value. They weren't. I'm pretty sure if they would have offered him anything of market value last year, 6 years or 5 years, $125 million, maybe $25 million a year, he would have signed last year and he would have been a Met this year. But the Mets didn't want him last year. They lucked into getting him because the market wasn't there. He had a qualifying offer. Then this year, the market is there and the Mets are like, no, 3 years is our max. We're the richest team in baseball. We got the most money in baseball. No. 3 years. I don't understand. What is it with this 3-year contract? Good players want stability. Good players earn the right to have a longer contract than 3 years. I understand some of the older players, maybe, toward the mid-30s, you want to offer them shorter-term contract. But Pete Alonso, 4 or 5 year deal, that's not ridiculously long. It's really not. I remember last year we were hearing Prince Fielder 10-year contracts, and I was going nuts. But now, 4 or 5 year deal for Pete, that's not out of the realm. It's not out of the realm of craziness. And again, the Mets right now, it just feels like this dismantling process was the game plan from day one. And they tried these half-hearted attempts to pretend like they were in it. But at the end of the day, honestly, I think David Stearns is happy. I think he's happy Diaz is across the country. I think he's happy Nimmo's in Texas. I think he's happy Pete Alonso is in Baltimore. And you know what? It's not over. It's really not over. But at the end of the day, you got rid of most of our talent. All right. You think that's great? I mean, if that was part of your plan, if this was part of your plan all the 3 years you were here, why not try trading Edwin Diaz? Why not try trading Pete Alonso? Why not try getting assets for these players that you don't value? Because clearly they have big value elsewhere. And I know it would have been a big hit to trade in Edwin Diaz, but at the end of the day, if you get a big return back, at least the Mets fans could justify it. At least we have some tangible value that we could say, all right, we got this guy who will positively affect the future of this guy. But again, we don't have any assets at all. Pete Alonso doesn't even have a qualifying offer this year. So we get zipped for Pete Alonso, and I think we get a 4th-round pick for Diaz as a compensation pick. So we get barely anything for him as well. So again, the thought process and the logic and the reasoning of David Stearns is very, very low. His logic is extremely low. And again, I really need to see something. Yeah, Danny. We were talking last night till 3:00 in the morning, live streaming. We knew last night we had to replace Pete. I mean, I don't know. Honestly, I knew that Pete, in my opinion, was one of the best options. I think Bellinger, Tucker, those are the two options right now at the forefront. Bellinger, Tucker. You got Schwarber off the board. You got Alonso off the board. Bellinger, Tucker, that's at the forefront right now. Let's see if we can get productive, talented players in here. And Richard, and they still won't get rid of McNeil. Insult to injury. Yep, they still have McNeil in here. You got to love that. Is this team serious about winning next year? Honestly, right now, if you even go back to last year, in 2025, and when the Mets got Juan Soto, right? And the Mets re-signed Pete Alonso, they signed Sean Manaea to 3 years, $75 million. Frankie Montas. Okay, we know who they got. Their pitching rotation was abysmal. It had so many holes. So at the end of the day, last year, if you compare our starting rotation with the Dodgers starting rotation, how could you honestly say that the New York Mets really believe that we could be a serious contender for a World Series? That was last year. Now, this year, when you trade away our heart, our soul of the team, how could you honestly say we are in it? Like right now, I'm just going to say it feels like we're in a rebuild. It really feels like we're in the midst of a rebuild. And again, if we would have done this 3 years ago when Stearns first took over this team, I would have been okay. David Stearns sees that it wasn't working here. You trade away Nimmo. He had more value at the time. Alonso, you move him. Diaz, you move him. If you would have done it the right way, I understand it. But this is backwards. This is backwards. You don't get anything for Alonso. You don't get anything for Diaz. You pretend like you want to sign him, like Met fans are stupid. And again, then you bring your guy in, Devin Williams. He pitched to almost a 5 ERA last year. And again, I believe he's going to be much better than that. I certainly do. But I do think he would have been much stronger in an 8th inning role. Now you hear the Mets rumored all over the place. Suarez, we're rumored it's Suarez, we're rumored Fairbanks, we're rumored Luke Weaver. All these bullpen targets, the Mets are rumored to supposedly be interested. So, last night, again, we spoke about if the Mets get 2 of those top options, at least that mitigates a lot of losing Edwin Diaz. You're never going to replace him, but at least if you get 2 top-end bullpen arms, at least that helps out tremendously. But right now, it seems like the Mets are in sand. They have a payroll of $280 million. And already David Stearns yesterday indicated that the budget isn't unlimited. Then if that's the question, why was the first move of the offseason increasing the salary by acquiring a guy who's 35 years old? If you're going into a rebuild, a bit of a rebuild or a retool, you don't go out and get a 35-year-old, especially a 35-year-old who is making, $26, $27 million a year. So again, The logic, I'm not understanding. Right? I'm not understanding. Now I know he's a leader. He's a leader, but you literally traded away a big part of your team, a big core. So, okay, so you have a leader there, a 35-year-old leader, 35, 36-year-old leader who has a decent glove and whose bat is diminishing. Again, do you usually acquire those type of players when you're rebuilding, retooling? Not really. Not really. I expected when we acquired Marcus Semien that we were going pedal to the metal, that payroll meant Zippo, that we would sign Alonso, we would sign Diaz because they're just plain talented, just like they're valued by the Dodgers. Again, the Dodgers value Diaz enough to acquire him, but he's not good enough for the Mets. Not good enough for David Stearns. He's good enough for Friedman of the Dodgers. He's good enough for the 3-time World Series champs since 2020, 2-time consecutive champs, 2024, 2025. He's good enough for the Dodgers. But for the New York Mets, don't worry, folks. We have another plan. David Stearns. Again, I don't know what the plan is. Thus, seeing him operate in the first 2.5 years, I'm very unimpressed. And after year one, again, I think a lot of luck was involved. You had Lindor hit that home run in the Braves series to get us in the playoffs. And then you have Pete hitting that big home run over Devin Williams to catapult us into the next round against the Phillies. We continued some hot bats until we got knocked out by the Dodgers. But again, that run doesn't even happen unless we get some pretty big clutch lucky hits. Now, if we don't have that big run in 2024, again, that first year we don't make the playoffs. And again, we have almost 3 years of failure. So, I'm not really sure how much more failure Steve Cohen could take. How much more failure? And, and even if you didn't want these players, there's a way to treat homegrown players on the way out. There's certainly ways to treat them, not pretending like, yeah, we value you, but not enough to retain you. I think that's more of a spit in the face, a backhanded compliment. I don't like the way they were treated on the way out. Diaz was angry. He was disrespected. You hear former players, former coaches. I'm not happy about what Chavez, the former batting coach, the way he responded yesterday. That was childish and unprofessional. But again, it just shows how much animosity there is towards this current leadership. Like, David Stearns, he's offending a lot of people. He's offending a lot of people by the way he operates. And again, in year one, I took it more like, okay, he's a shrewd operator. But right now, I think he's, very, very egotistical, very, very stubborn. And he's not the best communicator. So again, I said yesterday, I would hire a GM with the skill set that David Stearns does not have, because I don't think this guy is a good negotiator. I really don't. I think he's very stubborn. And, that's good to a point. But if you're stubborn where you can't be creative, where you can't work out deals, where you can't, where you can't have good relationships with other presidents, other general managers, that is detrimental to the New York Mets' success. It really is. So again, Steve Cohen is the ultimate puppet master. He pulls the strings. He's paying David Stearns almost $11 million. He's paying him the most money in Major League Baseball. He's paying him essentially to be elite. Now, is he operating in an elite way? No, he's really not. He's really not. One second. All right, sorry, I had to put the fan on. It's a little hot in here. Richie, right? Nimmo was fed up and wanted out, so he waived his no trade. Well, according to the press conference, when Nimmo was asked that specific question when he became a Texas Ranger, initially he didn't want to waive his no trade clause, but what he wanted to do was make sure that the Texas Rangers had a commitment to winning a World Series. And obviously, they had a commitment to winning a World Series. He went back, spoke to David Stearns, and then decided to waive his no trade clause. So who knows with David Stearns in private said to Brandon Nimmo, but Brandon Nimmo's ultimate goal was to be on a team that wanted to contend for a World Series this year. And again, then he waived his no trade clause. So who the hell knows what was said behind closed doors? But again, the Mets right now, and again, they don't really appear like they're all in for a World Series. They don't. And the thing is, I don't get it. When you have a payroll $300+ million, and that's what it's probably going to end up being, that essentially should mean that you're all in every year. But if you look back to it, the Mets weren't all in 2024. The Mets weren't all in last year, and the Mets don't appear to be all in this year. So what are we doing here? Are we just putting a good competitive product on the team that makes the playoffs and that's it? I mean, because I thought the goal was World Series or bust. I mean, that's what I thought the goal was. And then right now, you talk about ticket sales. You talk about ticket sales. You just lost Pete Alonso. You just lost Edwin Diaz, who literally it was a show for fans in the ninth inning. That was such a great thing for entertainment value alone. Having a guy like Edwin Diaz, having that dominant closer, it was good for productivity, good for wins, good for entertainment, good for ticket sales. Oh, it's not good enough for David Stearns. Not good enough for David Stearns. Again, I don't understand it. I'm not going to understand that. Pete Alonso, again, I understand a bit more because it seemed like he didn't really have a big fondness of David Stearns. David Stearns never really had that big fondness of Pete Alonso. But this year, Pete Alonso literally tried his best to prove everybody wrong, and really, in my eyes, did. Batted his career high, 272. Complete hitter. Literally did a great job being a lot more disciplined. Did a great job trying to lay off the slider, the outside slider. Didn't hit all for power, hit it more for average, walked a bit more, went to right field a bit more, up the middle a bit more. The only thing that we did that was bad and was obvious was the glove. But Pete Alonso mitigated that, and Scott Boras. Pete said, no problem. Your glove, you're worried about my glove. Half of the time, I'll be DH. And for the New York Mets, I'm like, okay, that's it. Pete Alonso agreed to be DH. We don't have a DH. First base, he could play a portion of the time. Then we'll have somebody else, Mark Vientos. Maybe we'll develop the young kid, Ryan Clifford. Then you have a solid DH in Pete Alonso. That's working out great. But again, it didn't work. And Pete Alonso was good in New York. Not good enough. Are we going to go after a guy like Murakami? Munetaka Murakami, that's a guy that, has been really rumored as a Pete Alonso replacement. And for me, he was never, ever an option. Never, ever an option. It seemed like you're going to have to pay him over $100 million. Guy's defensively challenged. The guy's a strikeout monster. He has trouble hitting pitches over 93 miles per hour. Again, that's an unknown commodity that if you're going to give him $100 million and not Pete, I don't get it. I don't get it. But again, I don't think that's where they would go. The two places I would go is Bellinger and Kyle Tucker. That's where I would go. Not tomorrow, not next week, today. Right now, David Stearns, you're aggressive. And David Stearns, don't say, hey, Kyle Tucker, here's our second offer, but don't worry, we're going to make a fourth or fifth and a sixth round offer. Don't play games, David Stearns. You played games last year. You played games with Edwin Diaz this year. You tried playing games with Pete Alonso. If you value the player, make a fair market offer right now. Stop trying to save the pennies. Last year, if you did that with Juan Soto, obviously Juan Soto would probably be a New York Yankee. And again, I know people feel maybe that's not the best move long term, but the bottom line, if you value the player, do not play games. Do not try to save pennies. If you want the player, again, make your final offer or make a very solid offer. Make a very solid offer. But again, let's see if he's capable of doing that. Daniel, you wrote Bregman, Tucker, Bellinger. Again, I'm with you on Tucker. I'm with you on Bellinger. Those are both two-way players. Bregman right now, last year, I felt that he fit the team a little bit better. This year, with you having Beatty at third, with you having Simeon at second, Lindor at short, the infield open spot is first. I don't think Bregman really fits this team currently constituted that well. And again, he brings leadership to the team, but isn't that why you're spending $26 million on Marcus Simeon? So right now, Bregman, and then offensively, he's not what I'm looking for. He's a good offensive bat, but I want better. So I'd really prioritize Tucker. I'd really prioritize Bellinger in the worst way. I think right now the Mets have to go pedal to the metal, and they have to move heaven and earth, and they have to show other teams this is your mark right now. You're right now. It seems like the Mets right now are being really kind of punked. They're being embarrassed right now. They're being belittled. Everybody's mocking the Mets all across MLB. Right now, we're being mocked. If you're Steve Cohen right now, you got to be very, very embarrassed. In my opinion, you have to be embarrassed because this is not a team and a franchise operating at a high level. It's not. And then you could say, well, you don't know what they're doing behind closed doors. They're playing chess. You're probably thinking in terms of checkers. Okay, well, what happened last offseason when we hated 80% of the moves or 90% of the moves? They were supposedly playing chess and we were playing checkers. At the end of the day, the team won 83 games and couldn't pitch, couldn't play defense, couldn't play fundamental ball. Everybody saw it from day one, except David Stearns, except the Mets front office. So again, we saw it last year. We're seeing it this year. What are we missing? Are we, and again, the Mets sold us last year that they were all in. They're selling us this year that we're all in. So, it's, again, we have one thing to do. Go out, be aggressive today, tomorrow, get your players, and let's move on. It's going to get late very quickly. That's another good point. If you look at Cohen's net worth, every single time you pull up Steve Cohen net worth, he's making another billion or $2 billion times. Every single 6 months, I Google this man's name, he makes another $1 billion. Since he owned or bought the team in 2020 when he was valued at $13 billion, now I think some people have him as high as what? You said 25 billion? So it's this guy's got more money than 99.9% of humanity. Diaz was not respected. He used the Mets offer as leverage to negotiate with the Dodgers. I'll say this. I agree he was not respected by the Mets, and that is a big L for David Stearns because he is, again, how do you not value one of the best, not one of the best, the best closer in the major leagues and the best closer in Mets history? How do you not value him? What do you see that other people aren't seeing? Again, the Dodgers value him, and they're already a World Series two-time champion. And I agree about the disrespect. As far as the leverage, I feel if the Mets literally respected him and made a fair offer, a fair and final offer, that things could have been different. What's up, Fire? The core did absolutely nothing. Lutz, Stearns, Cook. It's obvious the Mets didn't want him last year. I mean, I agree with that. Last year, they really didn't treat him right. They ended up backing into the Pete Alonso market. They got him for a very low ball offer. But as far as the core did absolutely nothing, I highly disagree with that. You have three of those core members finish in the top 11 of the MVP voting. Juan Soto, the core member, he finished as number 3 MVP. Lindor finished in the top 10. And Pete Alonso, who's now in Baltimore, finished in the top 11 of the MVP voting. You had Edwin Diaz, part of the core, who literally dominated last year in the back end of that bullpen, instilling fear in the opposing team's lineup. I think the problem was more than what the core did or didn't do. We didn't pitch, number one. We didn't play fundamental ball, number two. And defensive runs or defensive run saved, that was an issue. Defense, we did not play defense. So again, no core of any team is going to be perfect, but the problem was well beyond what the core did. And also, at the end of the day, now we got to, besides build all the pieces that had issues with it last year, we also got to rebuild a core. So now I guess Marcus Semien, he's going to be part of the new core. Francisco Lindor, he's going to be remaining part of the core. And you have Juan Soto as part of the new core. And then everybody else, I mean, still on the block. Kodai Senga still on the block. David Peterson, he's on the block. And then yesterday, I think Will Salmon said that David Peterson, he might be traded for a need trade, meaning that, we may trade him for, you need a left fielder, you trade him for a left fielder, you need him for a center fielder, you trade him for a decent center fielder. That's not really how teams that are like David Stearns, are not David Stearns, that are like Steve Cohen operate. A team that has more money than anybody else usually doesn't operate like that. Like, we have to trade a need for a need. We usually can go out and get a need through free agency. We don't have to send out and ship out a pitcher that we desperately need. We desperately need pitching. Usually teams that don't have money and don't have assets have to operate like that. But right now, I just, it feels like that there has to be restraints on David Stearns. There really has to be restraints. And I think those restraints are put on by Steve Cohen because of the fact that David Stearns has been unsuccessful, and he also alluded to something in his press conference yesterday. He said that, our success will really determine what we're able to do. If we were more successful, it feels like we'll be able to do more. Now, I think the lack of success in the last couple of years and the fact that Steve Cohen had to invest $400 million a season is, really got to weigh on a guy like Steve Cohen. Like, why am I paying almost $1 billion in the last 2 years to come in, fourth place last year, miss the playoffs? This year, I don't even have an 80-win team as currently constituted. So, maybe the idea is we're going to get a Bellinger, we're going to get a Tucker, but we couldn't get everybody, right? So that's my biggest positive spin. Okay, we're going to get a Tucker, we're going to get a Bellinger, we're going to get a nice pitcher, but we couldn't get Pete and we couldn't get Diaz, but we're going to invest elsewhere. It's yet to be seen, so it's hard to imagine. But if we're going to go in some direction like that, at least there'll be a little bit of logic. This is a good question. What happens if he's not going to get Tucker or Belly? Then what? Well, right, my confidence level, and I notice you're a Dodgers fan. I like that. That's a very fair question. And congrats on taking advantage of the Mets misfortune. I mean, good teams do that. I wish that David Stearns was able to do that, pull something of that off. But here's the deal. I'm not confident about the Mets getting a Tucker or a Bellinger. I feel that's what they should do. That's where they should pivot. But, David Stearns right now is very, very big on value. I think he feels like he could spend a similar amount on a lesser player and get similar production. So, you're going to have to pay up for Tucker. You're going to have to pay up for Bellinger. I mean, you do that because these guys are more likely to give you that consistent production. But again, this is not how the man operates. He operates in a different stratosphere. And, I know, you hear that the Brewers, very good organization. But again, I didn't like this conversation or this argument a couple years ago, but the argument right now rings true. David Stearns has been an executive for almost a decade right now. Almost a decade. So he's not a new executive by any means and really hasn't won anything. Won really nothing. So right now, why should we be so confident in a man who's literally won nothing and in a man who literally has been wasting so many resources in the past 2 years? And again, I guess this is where he feels he needs to go. He needs to, break up the core. Pete Alonso, that not good enough. Edwin Diaz, not good enough. And if, Lindor was a free agent, probably wouldn't decide to sign Lindor. If Soto was a free agent, that definitely was Steve Cohen's move last year. I mean, literally, I think he would literally rebuild his team from scratch, from the farm system, and still free agent. I really don't get it. I'm just so confused on what his logic is because it just really seems like he's trying to build a fourth place team. That's what it seemed like. I mean, you should be going pedal to the metal. You're in year 3, right? Mets fans right now, and I see it, we're giving him the benefit of the doubt. Let's see who he brings in. But at the end of the day, when I think about it, I'm like, we're in year 3. We should be so much better than where we are. We should have a solidified answer in almost every position. We should have 2 or 3 very solid starters. We should have a half of a bullpen built already. But literally so many answers that are unanswered right now. They aren't getting Tucker. He wants 10 years, 400 million. I mean, you know what? Honestly, you're probably right. You're probably right. I don't want either of them. They suck. Belly a bum. Tucker's been injured the past 3 years. Well, you know what? The good thing is, if you're a Mets fan, I'm pretty sure David Stearns thinks similar to you. I don't see a plan to compete in 2026. These moves scream rebuild. And you know what? That's the indication I'm getting. I mean, that is the indication I'm getting by a long shot. I mean, the only move that doesn't make sense as far as a rebuild is bringing in a 35-year-old second baseman that's making 27 million. Now, I guess the logic there is, well, you eliminate a 5-year deal and you cut up 2 years on the back end. So you trade a bad contract for a bad contract. So that's, I guess, smart in that respect. That's the only logic to that deal. Carson Bench, Jet Williams. I mean, you got to feel that those 2 guys are going to have a lot of play in 2026. Really, especially Carson Bench. You're hearing a lot of good things about him. Left field, center field right now. Left field and center field are essentially open. You have at second base, you have a guy who is not very old, but a guy who's older. So there'll be a lot of play at second base. So Jet Williams could play the outfield. Jet Williams could play second base. Carson Bench could play left field. But as far as I know these guys aren't bad defenders, but I wouldn't classify them as Gold Glove potential guys. So putting either one of them in center field, I don't think really, really catapults our defense to the next level, especially when you have a Juan Soto in the outfield. Now, if you're going to have one of those guys in left, and you're going to have Soto in right, I would want to have a better defender in center. That's why if you get a Kyle Tucker, that's just perfect. You put Kyle Tucker in right, you put Juan Soto in left. And then, okay, maybe having a less than gold glove center fielder could work out. Carson Bench growing in that position with a guy in left field who's a guy in right field who's a good glove that can help out the center fielder. Um, this is how dumb Mets fans are saying it's a rebuild. I don't think anybody's saying it's a rebuild. We're saying it feels like a rebuild. I think that's very different. We have a $300 million team, and honestly, right now, you are doing a huge dismantling of the core. So you are certainly retooling. And then again, we may not be as smart as you. So that's also another thing to consider. 100%. I love it. I really enjoyed when Dom took the Alonso 53 home runs picture down. Very inspirational moment for new players who come to the Mets. Yeah. For all of you who didn't see it early on. And the funny thing is, I put this picture up yesterday because I felt that we were going to sign him. This was a picture that meant a lot to me. If you see the signatures, I had a new job that I worked at. I was literally there for 2 weeks. 2 weeks. I told them I was a Met fan, and literally the whole staff, I don't even know who everyone was. They all signed it. Oh, let's give him a present. And a very nice present. But right now, whoa. Right now it's kind of done to me. What has the Fab Four core won? You're right. They've won nothing. They've certainly won nothing. But on a 25, 26 man roster, you need more than four good players. You need a good starting rotation. You need good defensive. You need a good defensive team. You need everybody to play fundamentally. You need a whole slew of players. I mean, it's not like a basketball team where if you have a Fab Four, they can win you a championship. Not in baseball. So you had a really good core: Juan Soto, Pete Alonso. I don't know if I would put Nimmo in the Fab Four. I probably would do this. This would have been my Fab Four for last year. It probably would have been Diaz, Alonso, Lindor, and Soto. That would be my Fab Four, not Nimmo. Nimmo would probably be in the probably fifth or sixth position. But again, you have to build around, a good set of players. Some of those players could be future Hall of Famers, definitely all-star players. Not all of them were great defensively, but I wouldn't necessarily blame our downfall on them. It's not just the fans saying rebuild, analysts and former players saying the same thing. Yeah. I mean, people are going to disagree. I mean, like I said, some people are smarter than the average person. Like David Stearns. You don't know what the hell he's doing, but again, he's apparently smarter than the average person, so he's got a plan. Yeah, Mount. This guy has no clue what he's talking about. What are we talking about? I'm reading comments. All right. Our farm was the worst 4 years ago. Stearns has made the farm the best in the MLB. Out with the old, in with the new. And that is a good point. I mean, that is one of the strong points of David Stearns. He's been a very good scout. He's been very good at handling the young kids, development of the young kids. That's been a strong suit. You saw the transformation of the farm. I mean, look at our top 10 players, our top 30 players. I think almost 15 of them are pitchers. So we have a lot of young pitching coming up. Last year we saw Nolan McLean, Jonah Tong, Brandon Sproat. But we have a lot more young arms coming up. Ryan Lambert, you'll probably see him in the pen this year. Dylan Ross, guys who could throw 100 miles per hour plus. Guys who have unique pitching, repertoires, different arm angles. There's just very unique things that we have in the farm system that we are doing right now. But at the end of the day, ESPN ranked the Mets as the best farm system. I think MLB had the Mets as 3 or 4. So whatever publication you look at, it basically ranks the Mets farm system highly. So that you give the guy, David Stearns, credit for at least that. What's up, game? Yeah, it's see, this is part of the 2 a.m. crew. Up 2 a.m. I think we did a live stream till 3 o'clock in the morning last night. Again, I was hoping that we would have great news today. I was hoping that, after losing Diaz, we'd come out of the box running. But literally, this winter meetings has been such a big bust if you're a New York Mets fan. Such a big bust. Losing Nimmo, losing Diaz, losing Alonso. Basically, nothing to I mean, obviously, we got Devin Williams, but that's a step down from Diaz. And it's another step down offensively, Nimmo to Simeon. CeeLo, I appreciate you. We've got one of the best communities on YouTube. Yep. You know what? Honestly, I love all of you. You always bring great stuff, even the opposing view. I love that as well because we need views from all sides. I come from a Mets perspective, but, there are a lot of people here that are not not Mets fans who always check certain perspectives or add certain perspectives that are very, very good. So I always appreciate that as well, especially on a day like this when a guy like a homegrown Met, Pete Alonso, goes elsewhere. So it's good to have everybody's opinion. Richard, you're funny. Dom is one of the few podcasts who hasn't tossed me yet. Well, how could I? You're one of the moderators here, so I definitely need you here. Okay, so I'm trying to look at the other side. Last year, I tried to be like pretty fair with Alonso. I spoke about he didn't have a great season. He's an aging first baseman. But again, this year, to be fair, the guy has really proved himself. And, to go out there, give him a 4 or 5 year contract offer would have been crazy. So we ended up not making that offer. I think the highest we made him was a 3 year offer. But, I'm looking at different perspectives here. A lot of different articles saying, being a fan of Pete Alonso is different. Running a front office is a cold business. And Stearns can't afford to let himself be guided by how beloved a given player may be. So this is somebody else's perspective. They say his sole job is to do what's best for the Mets, both now and in the future. And viewed through that lens, it's hard not to understand why he handled Alonso's free agency the way he did. Alonso's coming off another excellent season. He's had great numbers. Again, Alonso has been a good and valuable player and likely will be good in 2026. But the Mets core had been running its course. And if you're trying to remake this roster, sinking $155 million into such a one-dimensional player isn't the best business move. Letting Alonso walk gives New York significantly more freedom and more and a significantly higher ceiling moving forward. Now all they have to do is take advantage of it. Okay, so I mean that's okay. You understand that perspective. That's if the Mets utilize the funds in the correct way, right? If the Mets specifically say, I don't want to allocate $150 million to Pete Alonso because I want to give it to Bellinger. I understand it. I don't want to give the money to Alonso because I want to use it towards Kyle Tucker. I understand it. But if they're not utilizing it to help the offense in any way like that, then I don't understand it. If you get a lesser known player, or you get a player that needs developing or is not a known quantity like these two are, then again, then I don't understand it. But to be honest, right now, David Stearns, in my opinion, he's going to be a pretty hated guy. He really is, because he doesn't communicate well. I would say he's good at, he verbalizes things, but he's not very personable. He's not very likable. He's hard to listen to. He's very shrewd with his answers. If you ask him about a player he doesn't want to talk about, he closes the topic down, closes things down very, very quickly. And that's fine for a general manager and a president who has a great track record. But for a president who had a calamity in 2025, who's letting homegrown players go left and right, talented all-stars, potential Hall of Famers, gone, you got to be a little more personable to the fan base, because at the end of the day, this is an entertainment business. And obviously you want the fans to watch your product. You want them to come out to Citi Field. You begged us all last year, come out to Citi Field, support the team, and, hopefully you be rewarded. And again, the Mets played abysmal last year. So the Mets fans coming out and supporting the team, we were not rewarded. And you know what? The Mets last year, Juan Soto was his first year. That was a big draw last year. So the Mets have to understand that as Juan Soto's years go by, that draw becomes less appealing. And now this year, you got the team. Honestly, I wouldn't expect crazy ticket sales right now. I really wouldn't. Depending if they get Tucker, they get Belly, that's a different story. But as of right now, the Mets literally have a lot of work to do. And that work to do is to actually build up their value as an entertainment product, and a viable winner. Okay, yeah, I heard this is a good point, JMS. I heard this. Stearns said last night on SNY that they take the fans' attachment to players in account when making these decisions. They obviously don't. I mean, here's the deal. Like, I think that emotional attachment isn't one of the big things you take into account, right? And I agree. It doesn't look like they did in these situations. In the Diaz case, in the Alonso case, it's clearly obvious that they did not. But I think that is one of the characteristics of Stearns. He tells you what you want to hear a lot of the times. He tells you what he thinks you should hear. But a lot of times he doesn't do that. I mean, he does the opposite. So is it lying, or is he kind of bending the truth? I mean, it's for you to decide. But in this case, he certainly bended the truth, didn't take the fans into account, literally stayed to a very strict, rigid 3-year mold. Same 3-year thing with Diaz, 3-year thing with Alonso. Reduced the Nimmo contract from 5 years, traded that away, got a 3-year contract to Simeon. I mean, you look at like what's going on. The Mets, like really what's going on in that 4th year. Like I'm interested to see which contract, the next contract they offer, goes into the 4th year. Because if they go to Tucker, if they go to Bellinger, those contracts are surely going to be longer than 3 years. What's up, G Money? Mets ticket sales have skyrocketed. Well, last year we know they went up. I'm talking about future sales. Future sales right now, I don't anticipate them skyrocketing unless the Mets do something of value to the consumer. But yes, they did go up last year. Ticket sales were up from 2024. You had Juan Soto. That was a huge draw. I mean, a lot of people came to see Juan Soto. Alonso too. Alonso was chasing the Mets home run record. The Mets were fighting for a playoff position. There was a lot of reason for New York Mets to come out. They were trying to support. They were trying to urge this team to make the playoffs. But again, there's only so much time that you can buy from the fans. The fans are not going to come out and watch failure after failure, especially if you don't have these prime commodities on the field. Whether you like Alonso or not, he was a prime slugger, a run-producing slugger, primed to hit close to 40 home runs, 100-plus RBIs, and that was a very entertaining thing for people to come and watch. Edwin Diaz, having him come out in the ninth inning, that was very entertaining for people to come out and watch. Even Brandon Nimmo, he was a solid performer. Not having those guys in the lineup, if you have a $300 million team, you have an expensive ballpark for fans to come out and go to. You're going to have to win, number one. But if you're not winning and you don't have these marquee players, what's going to draw people to the games? Again, like time's gonna tell. Time's gonna tell. I mean, you're not gonna see overnight things. Maybe it's like maybe in a couple weeks, but like we're gonna see how ticket sales go. I don't anticipate people being happy. Hey, Alonso's not here. Hey, Diaz is not here. Nimmo's not here. Let's go buy tickets. You got to give people a reason to get excited, people a reason to go out and spend their hard-earned money. I mean, the ticket prices are not cheap, and then when you get there, you got to pay for parking. If you drive your car, then you got to pay for food. If you're hungry, drinks. I mean, it costs an arm and a leg. And if you go with the family, it's not cheap. I think he was speaking about last year. I think that's what he was talking about when Juan Soto 2025. Juan Soto came his first year. I think that's what he was referring to, because obviously these moves just transpired. There's really no time to view what happened to Mets ticket sales. All right, folks. So we're gonna call it quits right now. If anything happens, we're gonna jump back on. Hopefully something positive is gonna happen, because too much negativity has transpired in the last 24 hours. But again, I want to thank everybody for great comments, great conversation, great feedback. If you could drop a like before you go, again, I really do appreciate you. I really appreciate that. And I will speak to everybody very, very soon.